one of the most expensive things to do in marketing is the branding side. I love the fact of the people development side. That is really the thing that I love the most. You have to have empathy and you have to be transparent, honest, clarity, whatever you want to call it.
It's going to be super interesting to talk with you about all these like changes in AI tools. Thank you so much for joining, Kim. We're so happy to have you today. I will do like a quick introduction, which basically is that we met at Linearity and we worked together on the SEO project and your blog and website. And that's how we basically met. But maybe you remember a few years ago, I actually interviewed with you also for a company form. But that was such a long time ago that I forgot myself. It's so funny when I realized when I saw your LinkedIn, I was like, wait, I actually met you before. And Berlin world is so small that you always meet the same people.
So that's so great.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Like when I look at your experience and all of the companies that you worked for, there are so many hot startups, cool logos, and I think it will be just interesting to get an overview of your experience, just a quick intro, and then we will dive deep into each of your experiences.
I had really, really great opportunities. I was very lucky. I consider myself really lucky. I was able to work in really good companies like Booking.com, SumUp, GetYourGuide, really, really, let's say, trailblazers in their own industries. And there's so many things that I was able to learn in every experience that I had, not just from being in whichever type of company, but thanks to actually the people that I met there. Whenever you meet so many people that have so much knowledge, so much skill and expertise, you end up kind of absorbing it yourself. And that's how we actually learn a lot. And especially, I think Booking was, let's say, the foundation of my first experience in the tech world. So everything I keep doing today is still being influenced by what I had learned through my years at Booking, for example. And then I wanted to move a bit outside of the travel industry, especially because of what happened with COVID. Kind of, you had to in a way. And yes, fintech was the kind of really big thing at that time. So I was very interested and I was able to go into that, and there as well, I was able to really get a wider and much more broader, I would say, experience in everything that was marketing, because it was a massive, massive machine, I would say, of marketing and brand, going from online to retail. We were doing so many campaigns at the same time. So many things were happening at the same time. Maybe too many, because in the end, you couldn't really say what was really moving the needle, but really, really a lot of things that we're able to learn there, especially from, for example, the life cycle side as well. Really great collaborations. You had to work with so many teams. And I think that's also part of the cross-functional kind of vibe that I still really cherish and like, because when you're able to work with different teams, you are really able to then understand what the users of your brand or your product, whatever it is actually trying to bring value to them. So I think having a very holistic view really helped me improve and become a better marketer myself.
We actually met at SumUp, and then we never met in person because you were already working remotely. I think you were in Malta. When did you start working remotely, and how did that change how you lead people?
Luckily enough, when I was in Booking and GetYourGuide, we still had the opportunity to maybe to work remotely, maybe a few days or a few weeks when we were traveling or we wanted to take some time off. And also we used to visit the offices that Booking had worldwide. So in any case, you would also spend some time traveling. So we kind of already were quite used in having to do things outside from the actual office that you were in. But then obviously with COVID, it kind of became a very big standard. And to be honest, it wasn't a difficult transition. And I think mostly because thanks to the opportunities of already having to do things a bit remotely in a way, especially across time zones. In the end, it did help being not too overwhelmed by having to go directly from the office to being fully remote.
It would be interesting to dive into your experiences. What I noticed when I looked at your experience is that sometimes like you have both experience in like bigger companies and small startups. Did you have like any strategy when you were thinking about your career?
No, I was actually trying to find the right fit for me. So that is basically what I always look for. I try to look for the right fit for me as far as how I can leverage what I know and what I don't know in really helping me become a better marketer in general, and how to really get whichever company I'm in to really grow and achieve whichever business goals they have.
Maybe like if you have any pros and cons to like working, for example, for a bigger company and for a startup, and how did you feel like, okay, this is the right fit for me. I want to stay and develop my career here.
As far as myself is concerned, I like to go in where things are unstructured and things have been tried or failed and try them in a different way. I like to be able to do these things. So when there is already a massive amount of structure and everything, and you can't really make big changes, I really wouldn't feel that I can actually contribute that much, because I need to be able to try and think outside of the box, especially.
But you mentioned that in Booking.com was your first managerial experience, right?
Yes.
Do you remember how that happened? Like, was it a natural progression? Did you have to fight for it?
So the company was going through a massive growth at that time, and they were constantly opening new offices, both in the same countries and in other countries. So I started in the Rome office, which was basically the only office they had in Italy. They had another office as well in Milan. So the idea was that we wanted the brand to be more local and close to the actual locations. So they wanted to add more people to the Milan office. So myself and another team member from our content team, it was just the two of us, we moved to Milan. And after that, more offices actually were opened in other cities. And it made sense to kind of split the country into two. And we split it between north and south so that the offices could manage the different amount of, let's say, inbound and properties. So at that time, Italy was actually more than 10% of the whole portfolio that Booking.com had online as far as properties, which meant a lot of things to do. We also had a massive amount of inbound of new properties that were signing up, and you had to put them online, creating everything for them. So in that situation, it obviously meant that we had to grow as far as people. We were only, I think, 10 editors at the beginning, and then we became, I forgot how many, because of this. So thanks to that, the need of having someone that would be a leader, not just in Rome, but also in the northern side, became a necessity basically for the company, because we were too many. One person couldn't manage everybody. It would have been crazy for them. And then from there on, everything, yes, was a continuous progression. I fell in love with being a manager, and I just couldn't stop after that.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. What did you like about it?
I love the fact of the people development side. That is really the thing that I love the most. And really being able to help people in improving whatever they're doing, learning more, really getting them to where they actually want to go to.
Do you remember any, like the biggest successes that you have? Like, can you share some of the stories?
Well, I'll go with one example that I did in GetYourGuide. That was very interesting because we had a custom CMS. We could customize it with what we needed. However, we also were using sheets. So it was not very efficient because it was all manual. And in order to be able to continue to actually scale, because we had a massive amount of new experiences and products signing up on a daily basis that we just couldn't clear the backlog. It just wasn't possible. So we decided I said, we have a custom CMS. And I was just talking to, actually in a leadership training, with one of the tech leads, and he was my buddy in that training. And I was talking to him, and I was telling him, yeah, I have this challenge, and he was like, oh, but we could possibly maybe build a small tool for you. So I worked with him and his team, and they worked with my team as well. And they were able to really create a very simple tool that would help us prioritize and not have to use sheets anymore. And it I think they were super fast. It didn't take them more than maybe, I think, 3 weeks. And everybody was involved from my team because they were supposed to be using it as well and trying it out and testing it and working with the developers. And it was a really, really massive, impactful result because we had a backlog of the oldest product that had signed up was over 2 months old, meaning they were waiting for 2 months to actually be online. And we ended up after a while in just less than a couple of months to go through the whole backlog and get to the oldest one to be 48 hours, like meaning that everything that we would get, we were able to put online in just a very short time frame compared to before.
What about personal success? Like you said, for you, developing people is really important.
I think everything should be included in the sense that if you are a leader, you cannot think just about, let's say, business KPIs, right? Or think that people development or team development are not part of those KPIs. They should be, and they should be in the OKRs. If, let's say, the team development or was not part of the OKRs or the KPIs, I would add them there and make sure that they are. And if they're not in the, let's say, business ones, then I would put them in my personal ones so that my manager would have those and they would be able to track me and measure me on those. One thing cannot exclude the other. You cannot have, let's say, big business results with a disengaged and demotivated team. I just don't believe that's possible. The more motivated and the more engaged and empowered they are, the more they will feel that they can really contribute and be willing to do so. Team members that went way beyond what was actually part of their, let's say, day-to-day work because of needs that we had in our own team, whether it was me or another team member. And that would only happen if there is a very strong, cohesive team. If not, everybody would just care about themselves.
And speaking of keeping your team motivated, in the past few years, a lot of companies have had to lay off and cut teams up like a lot. And then how have you managed those situations?
They're definitely, I think, one of the toughest things and most difficult situations that any person can be, not only for the people that need to be laid off, but also for their managers. The biggest threat and the biggest problem, in fact, after, let's say, okay, the company tells you have to lay off people, that the layoffs happen, how is going to be the state of mind and the mental health of the people that stay? How are they going to be motivated, engaged? How are they going to trust me? So it's not a simple situation to be in at all. And I think I've been, again, lucky in the sense that the people that I've met, I've always been I tried to be as transparent as I could be. And I also always showed them that this is not something that obviously was my favorite option to do, nor for the business. People are smart enough to understand and know that there are certain situations that are out of all our control, and try to find a way to, again, believe in something if you lost any belief in it, or trust again. But it's going to take time because people will not give you trust back in just a few seconds. And the business needs to work to get that trust back. Transparency and clarity are the best ways to really resonate to people and to have people that can believe in you and trust you. You have to have empathy and you have to be transparent, honest, clarity, whatever you want to call it. These are the main 3 things that I would say.
I feel like it's like this transparency problem usually comes from when you're a manager, but there's like someone also above you and you have to manage people. So like you're almost like in this position in between where you want. Yeah, exactly. I think that's what it's called usually, right? Like for the managers who are in between,
yeah.
And you want to be transparent and you want to be honest with the people you're managing, but maybe sometimes like your CEO is saying like, no, don't tell anyone, or like there are some gossips or like intrigues, things like that. Have you ever had to navigate this kind of situation?
Yeah, there are always confidential things. There's always confidential information and non-confidential information. So in general, when you become a manager, you have access to information and data, even something very basic, which is each team member's history, basically, right? Their development, what they want to do, their goals, etc. That's something that's not privy to everybody. It's usually something that you discuss one-to-one with your manager, and whether they will have a promotion, whether they will have a salary increase, everything. So you need to learn that there will always be confidential information that you cannot share. But that's correct. You have to also preserve the privacy of people, right? And then you also have to preserve the privacy and the confidential information of the business. What I think sometimes people that are not in leadership positions don't think about is that you have to protect also the business. And there is always a risk that if any kind of confidential information, even if you're telling it to someone in your team and you trust them, you can never control what might happen next. So if that information then goes out and it's some type of information that could damage a business, then you cannot take that risk as much as you completely trust anyone in your team, right? So you will always need to navigate and learn how to be diplomatic enough in being able to share some things and not being able to share others. It's just a question, I think, of also timing. So certain type of information cannot be shared at a certain point, but it can maybe be shared later. So it's also a question of how you provide and how you communicate information and when.
I think you shared some of the success stories. How about some of the most difficult times that you had in your career? Like
for me in general, some of the toughest decisions or situations that I have been in were in fact the layoffs. I never wanted to do, and most importantly, you don't want to do it when especially you have to lay off people that are really good at what they're doing. And it's not even about the performance, right? Because it's fair enough if there's a performance issue and we've consistently not performing. There are always reasons for someone that is not performing. And the majority are that they're not happy in the role that they are. Maybe the company is not right. The role is not the right one. But when you have a really good team and they're really good and everybody is really working super hard and doing really great, then it's really just heartbreaking. Because you also know that the business will also suffer because of that. In the long term, you will lose that expertise and that knowledge because it's not going to be replaceable. And that is something that is going to still cost you more in the long term when you have to hire again at a certain point where you're better financially, then you have to rehire, but you don't have that knowledge anymore. Who is going to train these people? Who is going to onboard them? And that is something that should be considered.
Maybe we can talk now about the content, because content and SEO in general, it would be interesting to hear your thoughts on how the content changed since then and what are some of your observations in terms of the way the content marketing has changed.
I mean, I remember when I started dabbling in SEO, it was so long ago, it was so different and content was so different, but they were always exciting times in the sense that I think that a lot of people always forget that marketing has actually gone through so many changes in not even how many years, in little over than 25 years in the end, right? I actually was searching today. I wanted to see when the first PPC ad was actually done, and it seems it was in 1994. So we're talking many years ago. And nobody had thought about it until it happened. So I think marketers are some of the most, adaptable type of people and creatives that we have right now for the tech online, let's say, world. And I always like to watch the series, which is based in the 1960s, which is Mad Men, which is when advertising was a big thing. And I like to make these kind of comparisons on how things were there then and how they are now. But in the end, they were trying to do the same thing that we try to do ourselves now, right? So many things were different. All of the SEO algorithms were different. So many things changed. Search engines changed. Search engines that were there that nobody knows about probably now. I don't think there are a lot of people who remember Explorer apart from me, which I never liked, to be honest. But then there was Yahoo, and then Google came out and kind of became this massive dominant force that actually really helped in kind of, I think, transforming SEO even now, right? And now we're going again through another big phase of change, thanks to AI and all of the new technologies that are possible at what can be done. And I think this is what we need to do. As marketers, we need to adapt to the changes, embrace them, and find a way to leverage them, because it's the only way to actually become more competent and learn more and be even better marketers. In the end, what we need to try to do is to give the users the best experience and trust of the brand of whatever company and brand we are working for. So the most important thing is to achieve that. And you can only achieve that by really understanding them and giving them what they need without having them have to make any effort, basically.
You mentioned that we need to adapt and we need to embrace these new tools, and you mentioned also AI. So how have you personally integrated the use of AI or not integrated the use of AI in your latest roles?
I integrated tools and any type of new technology even before the AI tools came out, always. And I put them as this of kind of mini bucket of innovation and experimentation that in any case we have to do as marketers. So as soon as all of these AI tools came out with ChatGPT, what was the first name that the one Google had before Gemini? I don't remember, but before it was Gemini, it was called something else. And Claude, etc. I immediately tried them. And there's so many now that are actually really good. So I like using them, to be honest, and I like experimenting with them especially. But they do really help me save time, especially for let's say, the task that I already know how to do super well and I'm confident in, and it's just something that would take up time for me. And if someone else can do it, then okay. But I think that's the most important part, and seeing them as something that you leverage as another tool. In any case, before using Google Sheets, we were using Excel, didn't we? And I wasn't a big fan of Excel, but I did like Sheets. At a certain point, maybe at the beginning you don't like them, but I think at a certain point when you start learning how to really leverage them in the way that is best for you and what you need, then we probably will learn how to really get the most out of them. But there's a lot that I like. I would say Julius is one that I liked a lot, and this is a data analysis AI tool. And you give it data that you have, and for example, I have to process massive amount of sheets with data with I don't know how many tabs, and you can upload it, and then you can ask it to summarize it, create me some dashboards with it, just some slides or graphs, create a pivot table, or you create the graphs, and then in the meantime, I can do something else.
Yeah, you mentioned a few use cases already. What are your top 3 favorite things that you like to do with these tools?
The biggest ones are that I like is for data analysis. They can really help me summarize if I have a lot of things to go through. And I have to say, I do like Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini, and I do feel that they are quite different in what they provide. So I like to use them at the same time. And I tried this narrator tool. It's also very good for outlines, for the SEO side, etc. Yeah.
So how exactly do you use, for example, like Claude and ChatGPT are a bit similar, right? So do you ask the same things and then compare, or do you use them for different use cases?
I do use them also for different use cases, but most of the time I give them the same kind of instructions or prompts, and then I compare them. And sometimes I use some information from one, some information from the other, because some things are mentioned in one and the other doesn't mention, or vice versa. So if one of the tools doesn't provide it, then if the other one does, then obviously I will do a mix and match.
But do you pay for all of them? Because I feel like I have this feeling that...
No, I'm using the free version for now.
Okay.
Yes. For Julius, yes. I tried it as a free version. But then, yeah, I did subscribe because I did enjoy the results. So I was happy with that.
You're always learning something new, that like you're a nerd for like whatever new is happening. What was your strategy to like always keep up with the trends?
So I'll be honest with you. One of the main challenges that I've always had as a manager and also my other colleagues, how do we make sure that our team members feel that it's okay for them to take 1 or 2 hours per week to dedicate them to learning And it wasn't easy because that was always the first thing that they then would put aside when they had a lot of work or the workload was or something was urgent. I'm going to move that because I'll do it another time. But there's a massive amount of information available, which is great, but also how do you choose what's actually useful from what is, let's say, fluff? For me, the main things that, especially in a leadership role, is, okay, this trend came out or this whatever research came out. If it's not related to some of our main business goals or what we need to do, I will put them as a bookmark and I will keep them in my reading kind of list to read when I have time. While all of the other information that is provided, which is in fact something that can have an impact on all of our main priorities, then that I would immediately look at, because it could be a new research, a new study, a new finding, a new algorithm, and you need to know if it's going to impact you or not. The most important thing is to filter out what is not a priority for you at that moment. Is this, let's say, trend going to have an impact on our rankings, on our revenue, on our conversions? No, it's something that is possibly something, a theory, it could happen in 5 years, we don't know. Then I'm not going to spend too much time on it now. I will read it in my time when I have the opportunity to do that. I use several Google alerts. I was going to say one, but it's not true. I have several Google alerts with the various keywords that are connected to the main areas that I need to focus on. And that provides me with, for example, a new article about AI overviews is out on Search Engine Journal, and it's going to come out in the Google alerts. So some of the websites that I use the most in any case for these things are Search Engine Journal, Ahrefs, SEMrush. They do always provide a really, really good amount of information, and then some industry leaders like Neil Patel, he also provides a lot of information. HubSpot also used to provide a lot of information. It was very useful. But I find that, the Google alerts also allow me to not have to look for things. So they come directly in my inbox. And that saves me a lot of time.
Yeah, I love that. We'll definitely make a list of all the resources that you recommended and we'll put it in the notes. Is there anything that you would recommend to the leaders, to the marketing leaders?
Especially in the situation, and I think in the time frame that we are now and what's happening in our, let's say, in the marketing world in general, the marketing industry, I would really advise them to keep an eye out and keep having this kind of curiosity and innovative and experimental mindset. Remember on when we didn't have social media until 2010. We didn't have influencers. We didn't have a lot of things that are part of marketing now, and they're just part of it. And we don't even realize that they weren't there before. So it's something that will always happen. If it's AI now, in 5 years or less, there could be something else. We need to always know and understand that we can adapt, we can learn, and we can leverage these things.
Thank you so much. We have one last most important question.
Kim, what is your favorite soup?
I hope I'm the only one to say this, but it's pumpkin soup.
I love pumpkin soup.
You're the first one to say that.
Because I'm not a big fan of soup in general. I think it's because of the heat that we have at home where I live. It's too hot for soup.
Here is also hot, and we drink a lot of soup.
But pumpkin soup, I can never say no. It's tiny, tiny specks of bacon or speck and little pieces on top.
And then you dip some bread. So good. Now I want pumpkin soup.
There you go.
Yeah, same. Now I'm hungry. Every time we do that, I'm like, now we need to eat. Well, thank you so much, Kim. It was so lovely to talk to you and to get some of your knowledge and wisdom. And we wish you all the best in your next adventure. We're looking forward to see where this journey brings you next. And yeah, I'm sure it's going to be one of the coolest companies who will be lucky to have you.
Thank you so much.
I think the most interesting for me was the part with the AI, basically, because like I'm not someone who jumps very straight to something new. Like usually I'm not an early adopter. That's, I think, how it's called, right, in the startup world, because like if you create a startup, then you look for those kind of people, right, who are just like looking at the new technology and just trying it right away. I feel like I've never been this kind of person, and I don't know if that's something that holds me back.
I'm right there with you. I didn't know what ChatGPT was for a long time, and then people were like, they had been using it for months, and I was like, what the is even ChatGPT? And then I didn't use it for a long time because I was like, I don't need this. I don't see the point in this. Like, what the heck? I can do all of those things myself. And then you get like a slap in the face, and then you realize, oh, these things are actually useful and helpful. But I really need like some convincing. It's not that I see the first, I don't know, someone posts about some AI tool. I don't think, oh yeah, let me check it out. I think, oh yeah, whatever, and move on with my day. So I am definitely not an early adopter. It's not bad to not be, because right now the market is so saturated. Like I get a newsletter from like companies that got funding rounds, and the amount of AI companies that get funded every day is insane. So you also cannot be an early adopter of everything. Just the technology that is coming out is just too much, and there's also too much fluff. So you need to let other people adopt them, and then let's see many people talking about the same thing that works, and then you can be like, okay, I'm gonna check that one out. I don't need to be the one that vets every single new tool that comes out. And I see new like prospects and new leads asking more and more for implementation of AI agents and using AI for predictions and things that I'm feeling, are we staying behind if we are not jumping on these trends? I don't know. It's a tough call.
There's this book that I started reading. It's called Great by Choice. And it's basically the book where they analyze all the companies and how, like, in the same industry, two different companies performed completely differently and what made them great. And one of the things is like this balance between always trying something new, but not jumping into everything single trend. Because exactly as you said, like there's this image of this entrepreneur who always knows everything and who just starts like experimenting with every single technology there is, but it's not like that at all. Like you cannot actually try so many things, and you just need to be very selective, but at the same time you always need to keep an eye on things and be like, okay, maybe this is like the right decision to try it out. So I guess for entrepreneurs like us, it's the most difficult part, is like to making these decisions on, should we invest our time and energy into, for example, learning. We have this like huge spreadsheet with the things that we want to learn. There's no way in the world that we can learn all of them like in the next, I don't know, few months. So we have to prioritize it. I guess that's the biggest challenge, and I don't know how we're going to decide, but we will have to see. And if we succeed, then we are going to grow our company, and if we don't, we die.
Exactly. But I think something that Kim mentioned that I found interesting was that she has this Google Alerts from this, and she has chosen the sources that she wants to, and they are all reputable sources. And I feel like since we are very deep into the LinkedIn rabbit hole, there you just have anyone talking about just anything, and then they make it sound as if it's the most important thing and this is the thing that you have to try. And then you just feel like you're always falling behind because every day someone has something new to say. Probably the right way would be to look at the reputable sources and see what is that one topic that keeps coming up every day, day after day. And I mean, like, okay, maybe that's the thing that I should pay attention to, and not the 10 different things that people are shouting out about on LinkedIn. Maybe that's
because sometimes it doesn't work. Like, remember this Clubhouse thing everyone was talking about? 2 months later, it was dead. Like gone. And it happens sometimes, like everyone is crazy about something, But then it's just a trend. It's not really something that you should invest your time and energy on. And then AI agents, I think everyone agrees that this is something that will stay and that we should learn about it. It will help us automate a lot of processes. And yeah, if we manage to master that, I think it will help both us and our clients. I think this is the thing, like we shouldn't always act on things immediately. Like if something happens, then we just need to give ourselves a bit of time and a bit of space to be like, okay, let's see how it evolves. And if we need to, we keep an eye on it and then we do the strategy for it. But it's not like, oh, we should drop everything and now it's like a new hot thing that's coming, because it happens like every day. It's insane. Yeah.
Especially things like SEO, they take time to grow and you cannot just pivot every day, because then you're going to get nowhere. So you have to build a strategy and stick to it for at least a few months.
Yeah, this is really interesting. We'll see how this year unfolds. Well, it was good chat. I think we hope that our listeners also learned a few things. And yeah, let us know what you are using. We would be super curious to hear what marketers are using and what kind of tools, and if you are also like us and you are not jumping into trends or you are like super quick and everything, let us know. We would be happy to hear. Bye.